So I was on Reddit today and I noticed on R Vancouver, which is primarily run by leftists, they shared an article from what was it by Straight, I don't know, some left-wing publication, I'm guessing, and the title was Lawrence Sharp found guilty of manslaughter in one-punch death of Michael Page-Vincelli in Burnaby. And the picture that they show you immediately is of this white guy. So, what is your first impression? You're thinking, oh, this white guy sucker punched somebody and killed him and is now going to prison for, manslaughter or something. But, if research the article, you'll find other people talking about it too in the Vancouver Sun, and there's also Burnaby Now, who actually show you the picture of the real perpetrator, and it's of this black guy who went and sucker punched this white guy in a Starbucks after an altercation between the Michael Page-Vincelli and the black guy's girlfriend, who threw a lit cigarette butt outside of her vehicle. And I guess the Vincelli guy probably noticed this and picked it up and maybe threw it back at her for littering, right? And then this started an altercation. And then later, I guess he went back into Starbucks. She went into the bank, told her boyfriend, pointed the guy out, saying like, "Oh, he did this to me." And then later, the guy came in and just sucker punched him, which eventually killed him. And we know if the races were reversed, if this was a white guy who was instigated by his white girlfriend to go punch a black guy and sucker punch him, and which resulted in his death, this would be international news. You would not hear the end of it. Justin Trudeau would come out and virtue signal, and they would talk about racism in Canada and the evil right wing, blah, blah, blah. But because because the two perpetrators were black and the victim was white, it's just going to, go away. The media is barely going to cover it, and if they do cover it, they're going to mislead you. The CBC as well had a picture of the white guy, no picture of the actual people that committed the attacks, right? And they don't give you the full picture, the full story either. Global News also just showed you a picture of the white guy, doesn't show you a picture of the actual perpetrators. And then they give every news agency gave a slightly different account of the stories. Now Burnaby Now, which I read, they did a really good account, and also the Vancouver Sun did a fairly good account. But in the Global News one, they left out some information. They left out parts of the story where it made it seem like the Michael Vincent Page just threw the lit cigarette out at her and called her a dirty immigrant, because that was also one of the accusations from the lady, that he threw the lit cigarette at her for no reason and then called her a dirty immigrant. And in one of the she told the court at one point that it's because she wouldn't meet his gaze. That's why he threw a cigarette at her and called her a dirty immigrant, whereas she was the one who threw the fucking cigarette out of her car, and he probably was just like, hey, stop fucking littering. And maybe he did call her a dirty immigrant, but if you're throwing fucking trash on the ground and you're an immigrant, you're being a fucking dirty immigrant. So stop being one, or go back to your own country and litter there. Make your country a shithole instead of making the countries that you're coming to live in into a shithole. But I see even a lot of Twitter comments about this saying that like, oh, well, this guy's a racist and he deserved what he got, blah, 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 justifying these people's actions, which is insane. It's not okay to kill somebody because they say something that is racist, which you can't even prove that he did say. There was one witness in one of the stories that said like, oh, she saw that he called her a dirty immigrant. But, I don't believe that. Like I said, if he did, it doesn't matter. But I also don't believe it because of what he was in Burnaby. There's a bunch of immigrants and stuff, and they go in and punch some white guy. Then, like a lot of people, they cover for their own. They don't snitch, right? So it's like, You know, they see this white guy get punched, and yeah, I'm sure one person of these witnesses is more than willing to lie on behalf of her and be like, oh, I saw him say he was a dirty immigrant, blah, blah, blah. But maybe he did say that, but we don't know what she said. Nobody, what the fuck was she saying to him? But nonetheless, that guy went into a Starbucks, he was eating a bag of chips, had no idea, and then that black guy just came in and just assaulted him out of nowhere. And he also lied to the court. He said that he did it in self-defense, and he just went in there to go ask for an apology, apparently. And then you see the video, there's video evidence, he just walks in, the guy's eating a bag of chips, just punches him right away and walks out. And what also gets me about human beings is that a lot of people just kind of got up and walked out of the store afterwards. Like, I can understand, I'm not asking you to go in the middle of like a gang of 10 dudes beating somebody up and being like, stop it, stop it. But if you see somebody get fucking hit and punched really badly and then the person walks out of the store and they're not even there, at least go and help that person, for fuck's sakes. Like, you know, I just lose so much hope in humanity all the time. You see all these people walk out of the store. You know, I saw another video a while ago of this old lady with her head stuck in this train station thing, and people are just walking by like nothing happened. It's like, what is wrong with people? You know, is it really that hard for you to give another human being a helping hand once in a fucking while? Like, Jesus Christ. But you know, that's a whole nother thing entirely. But, you know, the way that the media is covering this, you know, the biggest media station, CBC, Global News, whatnot, is just disgusting. And once again, you know, you just see the headline and you see a white person's face. A lot of people, they don't read the whole article, so they're just left with that impression. Then, like I said, a lot of the Global News and whatnot, they didn't give the full picture. They just make it seem like, oh, there's some racist throwing cigarettes at immigrants and they retaliated, you know, and it led to an unfortunate event. And this woman, she got let off, which is insane to me. Like, she's the one that went and lied. She's the one that went to the bank, that pointed to the guy saying like, oh, he did this. And later she's like, oh, well, the only reason I pointed at him was because my boyfriend wanted to know who said these things to me, and you know, I had no intention of getting him hurt, even though she even told the guy as well that my boyfriend is going to beat you up for this. So she said, my boyfriend's going to beat you up. You see the camera on camera that caught all this. She walks into the bank, so you're pointing, this guy, and then he gets punched. So clearly it was her that started this whole thing. But you know, she's a damsel in distress. She's a woman. We're going to give her a slap on the wrist, or she got completely acquitted, so no charges whatsoever for instigating this, right? And that's one of the worst things. That's the thing that really gets me the most. It's like, you know, yeah, this Lawrence Sparks guy, or this Lawrence guy that did this is going to go away for probably a few years as well. He should go away for much longer, especially for lying and stuff. But this woman gets no time whatsoever. And, you know, this is what's really wrong with society as well, is we keep giving women a slap on the wrist to do this type of shit. And, you know, how many of these altercations between two men that lead in death usually have a woman in the middle of it saying like, well, oh, he cheated on me, or, you know, she cheats on her boyfriend, and her boyfriend loses his shit and goes and kills the fucking both of them, you know, or the guy, or, you know, there's some lie that she concocts saying like, well, he grabbed my ass and he did this, and then the other guy who goes to white knight for his girlfriend, always goes and kills the other dude for her. You know, I've ever watched those true crime shows, how many women like manipulate these like young guys to go murder like their husband and all these other men for them, and then they still get let off scot-free. They still get like a lesser sentence and whatnot, whereas like these women, some of them they're just as bad as Charles Manson. You know, he didn't technically kill anybody either, but he also got a lot of time. But it's because men and women are treated differently, and they like to think, oh, men have all of this privilege and society and all that. Well, Yeah, maybe to some degree we have some things that we're allowed to do that women aren't. But when it comes to crime and punishment, you'd much rather be a woman in that circumstance because people will look at you almost like a child. And we do treat women like children a lot of the times. We're just like, oh, well, you have no agency. You can't make any decisions for yourself. You were just a poor damsel in distress, but at the same time, oh, you're just as powerful as men, and you're just as smart, and this and all these things. But we're not going to hold you to any sort of accountability whatsoever. They want all of the privileges of becoming a man, but none of the burdens of becoming a man. Right? It's like, oh, I want to vote, but I don't want to be a part of the draft. I don't want to have to go fight and potentially die, but I want to vote and make decisions on things, right? But that's a whole different rant of itself. But this is just hilarious. The way that the media covers this. We know that it would be different if the races were reversed. I saw this story in Winnipeg a little while ago too, where there's 3 native guys who killed this white guy in his house because they're all meth addicts or something. And I guess some dispute happened. Like on the stairs, these 2 guys started fighting, and then the other guys came in, joined in, and they killed the guy, put him underneath a mattress for like 3-4 days, let him like rot, and they were still doing drugs, doing all the shit, living in the place, essentially like squatting in this guy's place. And if the roles were reversed, it was 3 white guys who killed a native guy. Even if it was drug-related, meth-induced, that's what they're going with right now. They were on the meth rage, and that's why they did it. Which I'm not even sure about that. But if it was 3 white guys who did it to an Aboriginal guy, it would be a hate crime. You would see a bunch of Aboriginal groups organizing. Trudeau would come out and condemn it and offer to give a lot more money to missing and murdered Aboriginal people or something, and give another $100 million funding or whatnot. But when it's this, then it's like, oh, it's not an issue, not a problem. And these guys, they got let off with lesser sentences. I think it was going to be 1st-degree murder, but then it got lessened to like 2nd-degree or manslaughter, whatever the lesser sentence is. I forget what it is, but because they're Aboriginal, and they argue because of colonialism and because of this and that they should get less sentence for what they did, and they did. They got less of a sentence. So where is this white fucking privilege that I hear so much about? I can't fucking use my history and what people did to French people or something to get a lesser sentence in court or whatnot. Like it's fucking ridiculous. But how long are we going to be doing this for? Another 200, 300, 400 years? How long does this residual colonization and oppression last, right? And why don't we treat other groups like this too? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's just a way to pander to the Aboriginal group, the Liberals and the NDPs and left wing, to be like, oh, we'll give you less time, less penalties, but just vote for us. Vote for us. Vote for us. They don't care if it destroys your community. They don't care if it makes a bunch of Aboriginal people drunks and whatnot or dependent on the system. They want that. The more, the better. The more dysfunctional that they are, the better that it is for the Liberals. The more that they can say, oh, you need us, blah, 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 the more that they can give them benefits and say like, oh, well, you can go to a healing lodge if you go and you commit murder and you bash a little fucking girl's head in or something. You can do all these things. And potentially escape because there's no fucking walls. But white privilege, you got white privilege, man, you're white. Yeah, let's fuck this bullshit white privilege nonsense. When we see, a lot of these crimes being done against white people, a lot of the times being swept under the rug. And I don't want it to be politicized like these other crimes are, like the minority crimes or whatever are politicized by the left. That's not good either. We shouldn't be like, look at white people are under attack by all blacks, by all natives every time something like this happens, right? Like the left does. like they did with the whole Bushi case, saying like, oh, look, these white farmers are killing natives, and oh, this is colonialism and all this crap. Like, we can't do that, but it's good to at least notice the double standards being played by the media, and to give at least some of these stories a little bit of light, to be like, see, it's not, you know, it's not just one way. It's not just all white people are just evil and all this stuff. And as you can see, it's very hard to get any type of hate crime conviction against anybody who is white, whereas it's so easy to get hate crimes against anybody who is not white. It's so fucking easy. You just utter a racial slur, hate crime. This is, you know, racial slurs are hate crimes. You know, if that gets jotted down as a hate crime. You know, somebody writing chalk, a swastika, that's a fucking hate crime. You know, but you can write white people are cancer, white this, fuck white people this. That's not going to be considered a hate crime. And like I said, I don't think it should be, because these crime things are just used in a very divisive way. But just be aware that, you know, if it's not politically beneficial for the left, they're just going to ignore it. And you could say that, I guess, about the right wing too. They're going to promote more stuff about Islamic terrorism and stuff than they do other people, but that's not a false narrative. That is true. You know, like that Islamists are a threat, that they believe in jihad and all this stuff, that maybe we shouldn't be bringing in a lot of these people into our countries. You know, a lot of that stuff is actually true, but the stuff that the leftists promote, that like, oh, black people are being butchered by the police in the streets in America every single day. When you look at the crime stats, it's 99% of the people killing black people are other black people. It's a very small percentage that are actually being killed by police, but it's a you know, a fake statistic or fake, you know, premise, and then they just boost cases of white people killing black people, or white cops killing black people, and then they ignore cases that don't support their narrative. But, you know, sounding the alarm of Islam and the dangers of Islam is not comparable to what the left does. But that's all I pretty much had to say about this. If you like my content, subscribe and have a good day. See ya. And also, oh yeah, check me out on Discord, Minds, and Gab, and anything else that I have below there. Just subscribe to, you know, we got to help these other alternative platforms get a little bit bigger. And also, I want more people to go to the Discord, you know, share me stories, have conversations, and whatnot. But that's all I had to say, so take it easy, guys. Have a good one.